Hello, I am Dr. Giovanni Vinti, and in this module, I will provide you details on the circular economy and waste management concept. Indeed, it is important to consider that with the high growth of population, as in Mogadishu, the consumption of products also increases rapidly. The current linear consumption approach in Somalia, that is the take, make, dispose model, has generated big pressures with the degradation of the environment, depletion of resources, and emissions of waste and pollutants. As you can see in this figure, the linear economy approach is based on the resource extraction, production, material consumption, and waste generation. But in this case, waste ends up in disposal sites without any new possible use. As a consequence, a new, more sustainable approach is needed. It consists in the circular economy, which is based on turning goods that are at the end of their life into resources, minimizing the waste generation. The circular economy represents an approach promoted by many international institutions, such as the European Union and the World Health Organization, and it is in line with the waste hierarchy principle based on the following order: waste reduction, reuse, recycle, energy recovery, and waste disposal. The circular economy is a sustainable system that benefits business, people, and the environment, for example, by means of sustainable consumption or production. In this slide, you can see the linear and the circular economy in comparison. Indeed, in the case of the linear economy, waste is not used as a resource, but also the informal sector is not involved. At the same time, there is a high land loss because all the waste is ends up in landfills or dump sites without any kind of reuse. There is also a high greenhouse gas emissions that has to be considered because waste that are managed in an inappropriate way ends up in disposal sites. But this means that also the organic fraction of waste, for example, the food waste, is disposed of in landfills and dump sites. But during anaerobic conditions that usually happen in these sites, there is a strong generation of methane that is a dangerous greenhouse gas. Furthermore, the inappropriate waste management that usually characterize the linear economy lead to high health risks. In the case of the circular economy, in which waste is converted to resource, there is often a formalization of the informal sector. This is good because many informal workers usually can be found in dump sites or landfills because they try to reuse some materials having resources such as copper. Furthermore, there is a lower land use. This is because there is a lower amount of waste that ends up in landfills, and in this way there is disposal sites are not so important in terms of land required. There is also a reduction in terms of greenhouse gas emissions because in this case the organic fraction is used in a more appropriate way, for example, producing compost, and there is a lower amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Finally, the circular economy is based on a more appropriate waste management that leads to a lower level of health risks. In this figure, you can see that the circular economy is a way to zero waste having the following features in terms of production, distribution, and consumption. Indeed, in terms of production, there is, for example, the concept of the eco-design, in which waste is easily recycled because of the way in which the products were conceived and designed. In terms of distribution, for example, it can be followed with one-to-one return strategy. In terms of consumption, because the recycling parks, reuse centers can be promoted. It is also important to consider that local and regional authorities play a crucial role in the circular economy. Indeed, for example, they can promote the industrial eco-parks of territorial symbiosis, in which factories use waste from another factory as a resource. There is also a waste selective collection, the development of appropriate and efficient recycling or reuse infrastructures, the involvement of informal sector, but also in terms of behavior change campaigns in which consumers and citizens are involved. Finally, as anticipated, the reduce, reuse, recycle principle is very important in the circular economy, and it is summarized in the definition of 3R principle. In particular, waste reduction is very important because recycling is beneficial in terms of reduction of waste that will end up in landfill, for example. But it has to be considered that in general, there is currently a higher waste production per capita in many areas of the world, and also a increase in terms of growing population. This is something that is also affecting Somalia. And with this in mind, it is important to conceive the waste reduction, for example, by reducing the consumption of some goods or extending their life. The waste reduction is also related to the reuse concept. Indeed, on one hand, one person's waste can be useful for another person. On the other hand, some goods could be repaired, then reused by the same person. This will also contribute in waste reduction, of course. Finally, waste recycling is very important it is crucial to collect waste that can be recycled and turned in new products. In this way, waste disposal can be reduced. It is important to retrieve recycled materials from the households, shops, and establishments. And doing this, local actors need to be involved. Thank you for the attention.